Hey, just
Hey,
squeezing in some domestic chores while you were doing your business.
nice. I hear ya. I got the same stuff going on over here.
I know,
Ah,
but so continuing on while we can.
yeah. Yeah, so basically that was, what I was going to tell you about with Utopia is the place that I went where we lost contact and then, you were in your healing process, was the place that I was years ago in 2013. And I had the other side of the conversation with myself there and just realizing the ability to stand in two places at once and have full-on conversation with myself is something that I've been talking about, and it's been slowly revealing itself to me. And I think that that could be defined as the waking up process, waking up to the fact that you can be two sides of the conversation at the same time. And the girl that I saw at Utopia, I was out and I was walking, and I saw this girl, and we made eye contact, and both of us were like, "Hey, what is that?" Like we were like for a second responding as if we had been old friends. And when we got a little bit closer and we began to hug, we realized that we'd never met. And I do believe that she was probably one of those that I've connected with in the dream time. And I'm sure that it happened, in that campground one of those years, because this is an event, the Burning Man after party that happens in the same place every year. So it's another kind of tiny but confirmation of people are going to start recognizing.
Well, I already have comment for what you were saying to remind you of something from way back in
Yeah.
2013.
Uh-huh.
Because I could swear on oath for the record that you specifically made mention to me something about starting a conversation that you were anticipating receiving the other end of at some point, because you were explaining to me the process of the bubbles with Jay as the GIMP when we were first talking about you realizing that you were just making these pockets of energy that could either be drawn upon or used as a deflection or trap mechanism. And in the process, how you were explaining it to me and something that you were trying to do that was different and a growth because you were understanding the flow and the contact of your higher self. You specifically made mention of trying to start a conversation that at some point in the future, like a seed or a bubble of this energy, it would be revisited to finish the conversation. At that time is how you expressed it. But carry on the other end of the conversation is the same definition.
Yeah.
So
totally.
That's why I want to just remind you that that's where I come in handy for the record, is because so much has transpired. And like when you listen to me and I'm saying the same thing over in a different way, of course that's tedious. Not what I'm saying to you is I can remind you of things that you've either started and it sounds like this is a part of, or etc.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely two-way, and basically, when I get home tonight, I'm going to be doing just preparing. Really, tonight is considered the. Wait a second. Today's Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday. I thought you were doing the big dump on Friday.
Yeah. So Thursday, full moon is considered a 3-day event. So the first day will be Thursday tomorrow. Right. So tonight is prep for the 3 days of work.
Right. Yeah. So how we've set up our week, because we're following the Roman calendar of Vatican and Rome, is that today is what everybody else would think of as Taco Tuesday, the end of the world. That's our today, but it's not our Wednesday. But it's not that we're ending, it's because this is the new beginning, but our beginning does not necessarily connect to the ending that occurred the day before. You follow? So in and of itself, it's an ending of all that was and a beginning of what's about to be. But why I'm saying that is because then Thursday brings in, for lack of better terms, was being called Thoughtful Thinking Thursday. That's where the intent, the darkness before the light, the what goes on behind the curtain that nobody wants to be involved with because it's actually laborious. And then Friday's the big reveal. And then from there, Saturday is usually when we go bonkers, we go manic on both sides, because whatever we set in motion, those that agree become part of, and those that disagree become non-existent. But handing it off back to you again about the 3-day part, and tonight's being prep.
Yeah.
And how we're going to do, because there is theater involved, as we know, with the math. So Friday, when you convey that to me as being when all of the energy is going, this is a one-shot linear transaction. There's no other sidereals that can, well, if this one doesn't work, one of the other ones did. You follow?
Yeah.
And it's intentional on our part, because we want this to be the foci point. All other intersections are going to almost, this is a reveal of the singularity for that moment. Because everybody's plot level for transportation out of a third dimensional reality, regardless of how you express it, can be looked upon through the full moon transition, right? Because it's pretty much...
The beginning conversation 4 years ago was on a full moon. The other side of the conversation when I was on the mountain was a new moon 2 weeks ago. So this really is the full moon.
Right.
That relates to that throwback to 4 years ago.
So this is where 7 and 9 numerically come into play. You were settling the 9 2 weeks ago on Friday, right? And now this is the all of that horizontal collective as a unified singularity point casting forward from this Friday, doing the 7, going vertical. Okay?
Yep.
And why that's able to happen is because we've rematerialized and reparticleized the quartet once we acknowledge and realize they were just jumping Planet 99 around on us and just making us make all of our current present line up with the new locations of 99, and all that did was buy them more time and existence, because it's just like what they were doing to those that are asleep in the simulation there. They were still doing technically with us as we reveal the technology, because we're part of the transition here forward and refuse to come from there to here to manipulate behind the scenes. But because we're using that technology there going forward, it's available to others that are awake there to come back here. And that's who we're battling here. And they've revealed themselves because to those that are in power as aliens, or some kind of whatever the conspiracy theory that those that are now in power want to believe, the HRCs and all that, which is mainly an alien. We've connected with another species that's in existence that can teach us how bad we are, and we're finally doing the right step. You know, the whole global warming bullshit. Just another way to profit off of that and make just there's no middle class, just haves and have-nots. So originally, what we thought we were up against was the intelligentsia, right? And we thought that they understood through AI that it was humans in the future that were being made contact with, and that, you know, there was only a small amount of humans from now that need to be involved in that evolutionary change. And why I'm expressing that mainly and bringing it back down to your conversation on the mountain is because everything that anybody on a cosmic plot level thought was going on, the hollow earth, the dark side of the moon, we're already traveling throughout the star systems and the galaxies and the universes, all of that hype, that all is happening. So if we're the ones who are responsible for all of this, how come no one's come and, you know, why aren't we in the muckety muck with all of them, etc., etc.? And as we know, the reason for that is because we refuse to come from there to manipulate here, in the sense that we know, and what I've planned for us mathematically with your theater, as you're experimenting, waking up people now that you bringing it. You still there? I had my eyes closed and I knocked the phone off my little setup because I was getting all animated and fucking autistic on you. So where I was going with that is, and this is all part of 2012 and back scenario, which is hard to get reinvested in because of what's been going on in the interim period and then 2016 post. But where I'm going is, we are going to physically arrive from a future point here in 2025, where we will, as I've already explained to you, but I also explained all this to Egan too. So now it's a triple or a multiple insanity instead of a binary, you know, illusion, delusion. And it's all about folding that, like, we just, people think that Mars 28,017 is a point in time in the future, which is kind of correct, but we can fold space-time between 2017 to that Mars of 28,017 right now. It's not waiting linearly to get there. So at that point in time, we've exposed enough of that fifth dimensional dime Mike Silva energy here as technology and emotional and logical thought control, you know, so that that'll get us into current affairs in a moment. But getting back to the spatial portion I'm trying to just vet through, that we are going to come back and trade places with ourselves, and that's why maneuvering to a position to be seen isn't necessary, because we're the only ones. We're gonna, and we will then make a splash in 2025 because our future selves, quote unquote, are going to be here explaining how to get everybody woken up. Because by that time, in the exponential way that we're working now, everybody will be receptive and be able to see the hatchback of our space-time transit machinery open up, and whoever comes walking out of that open hatch, that too, in order to make sure that there's no paradox, other living beings of human right now exchange places with themselves. And so getting it back to you in the conversation on, what I'm curious to know is, was it setting up the ability to know that that mechanism works, or is the actual conversation you were having a part of it too, and that you'd like to express aloud?
Are you talking about on the this side?
All right, that was a little muffled on me.
But were you talking about the other side of the conversation that happened on the new moon on the mountain?
Yes. Is it relevant, or not right.
I'm trying to clarify the question that
yes.
you just asked.
Yeah. Are you willing to reveal the communication, or was it just knowing the mechanism worked that you could talk to both sides of the conversation? The point.
I was levitating in public spaces.
Yes, that I want to definitely make sure we get to.
Yeah, that was what I was doing in the dream time. So this was a festival. There was a bunch of shrooms, acid, who knows what the fuck they were doing.
Right.
Their eyes were completely open. I pitched my tent right behind a DJ booth that was blasting music 24/7.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up music. Okay, continuing.
Yeah. So my little brother was with me, and it was, super loud music, and so I was sleeping to this, and I was, projecting myself out on the dance floor, levitating, and people who were there did see me.
Saw you on the dance floor levitating, yes. So, going back to what I just said about you, myself, and Egan having a multiple illusion, you're actually just conspiring to say the same thing right now, that because those people were on the same frequency, and you cover all frequencies. It's not that's the whole one-in-one thing, but to resonate to those who have very limited frequency range is what we're trying to do now. But getting back to it, that's super awesome is all I can say about that.
Thank you.
Of course.
It was a little scary.
I would imagine. So I would liken that experience to what I continue to try to convey is the role of those who identify as divine masculine, which applies to anyone who transgendered, or anyone who is a female homosexual who identifies as male. The point is, it's going into the unknown outside of the electromagnetic shield that contains the light of the divine feminine, so that we may possibly expand, encounter, or at least spare others. And so it's a facing your fears scenario. That's why fair flow is necessary. But you and I are trying to run stacked instead of side by side, or both at this. I should say it's basically both. But the point is, we would prefer to have the divine feminine shining only introvertedly within the electromagnetic field, and the masculine used as a laser that is directed by the divine feminine to go out a specific range and identify, and basically the masculine fills to 100% capacity and then leaves that electromagnetic field shield and expends that energy and returns to be replenished, but never expends the energy within the electromagnetic shield field of the divine feminine unless it's for procreation purposes, because there's no need for a discharge of 100% divine masculine within 100% divine feminine unless they're trying to create another.
Right.
So that covers any and all identifications of individual, but we're still binarily down to lineage or immortality as far as evolution and observation. And because to get this small, the self of the fifth dimension has to divide into male and female aspect, just because there's not enough size here to be both.
Right.
So that's why there is a need for masculine and feminine within three-dimensional reality. But that's supposed to be the experience, and that's nothing against other gender. That's also, though, once you identify, then you become nurtured by the divine feminine so that you can be the best nature through nurture that you can be and have purpose to the collective, right?
Yep.
Instead of the divine masculine throw off the cliff, survival of the fittest.
Right.
But that attitude is necessary outside of the electromagnetic field of a star or a galaxy or a supergiant. Because if you don't have a survival of the fittest, not a destruction of others, just that you feel that you are part of the alpha fittest. So that's why you're out of the electromagnetic protection, because you are the top of the evolved. But there's no competition to be had within the light. That's what we're eliminating now. That within the light is not a competitive field. It's a playful, loving environment, supportive and nurturing environment.
Yeah.
But that's why we have to get the fuck off of Earth, a majority of the people, and almost do, that's why we need to allow people who've already amassed groups that are mathematically and theatrically, exponentially or fractally consistent with theatrical mathematics of the twin Christ, you and I, that we fold them over to other star systems and allow chief and shaman as star and planet, and then tribe as dominant species upon planet to exist, so that we balance harmonically the number of human beings that are supposed to be on Earth. And for now, even if we just have to build, Motel Moon just to get the Earth back in balance. So I'm sorry I went off on the tangent, but scaling it back to the conversation that you were having, and if you want to express what that was, because it's relevant to the ceremony and ritual that's been building now for 2 weeks.
I mean, the conversation was very much like,
oh,
yes, this is a real conversation. Yes, this is, you need to continue this conversation. And, like I said, words are just as important as the emotion that is experienced because of an event. So that's really what I'm focusing on, is the joy of the ability to turn on and use it.
That answers my question about knowing that the process worked for the transfer of ability, and that your ability to stamp that okay is the emotional response of that, of feeling, to know that it was a, so that's and I fully understand it. So thank you for reminding me about the emotional part of that, and why that's, once again, for me to be important. Because remember when I was expressing the coloring in the coloring book, and then going outside of the lines on the page, and then onto the floor, and out of the room, and then out of the house scenario, and how you exponentially grow to contain just that small linear amount of distance?
Yeah.
Okay, so as you're saying, the conversation wasn't relevant. It was the linear recognition of recognizing self at point A and point B, with distance in between, right? Now think of how much life and experience that you lived between those 4 years, did you say?
Yeah.
So the tether line between the self 4 years ago and the self 2 weeks ago was an emotional string. Sorry, I just knocked you on the floor again. Talking with my eyes closed. You still there? Monique? Oh no. Monique? Oh, are you there?
Yep.
So I knocked you on the floor again, and somehow I hit the hold button, not even knowing there was a hold button on my phone. That is great. Alright, so where I was trying to say is, so the self to self is like the coloring line out of the lines across the floor, a very foci, linear, like laser, limited amount of space taken up. Yet the life you lived and the experiences you had within those 4 years are exponentially huge and had nothing to do with the communication. But what I'm saying is we're beyond just whatever you might have been talking to yourself about, that because it's an emotional thing and not even a language, mathematical thing.
Yes, 1,000 words for a second of emotion.
Right. Well, so it's the same expression that I was making, where your self-to-self communication covers a short linear distance of 4 years, but the experiences had by self are gigantic within those 4 years, just like the room and the outside expand as you continue coloring, off the floor and out the door. So it's just an exponential version of what you just did is what I'm expressing, and just the way of the mechanism when you were expressing to me, crap, what was one of those texts? It was within the last 24 hours about being in the flow. And I want to get to the, dumping all of the energy on Friday. And I want to intertwine with that is the energy that we brought back from the 5th dimension after from the operation. That's in the little gun that I have. In fact, I have it in my pocket again. This energy reveals as technology. So we're starting the technology dump on Friday, which is just revealing all of that energy. And the only way that it gets interpreted back here is either as emotion or as technology. Logic and emotion. The emotion is the social justice that we're doing with the collective that's still stuck on president and pope, using the Trump suit. So every time they try to take down one of ours, the Z Martian left, the HRC Obama camp, right? They are correct. They are taking down one of our pre-2012 definition of white man, which is the imperialistic, enslaving enemy of the American citizen. We declared independence against the white man. So anyone who identifies as the white man is trying to control and enslave others as either pope or president or both. You with me?
Yeah.
So because of that, we, through the Trump suit, using the Jill Stein platform of what needs, under the divine feminine understanding, not the feminist understanding, of issues that need to be exposed. And it's mostly this human traffic. It's anything where the masculine mainly tries to subvert or subjugate feminine or child, masculine or feminine, or other, you know what I'm so, and then it can, a small portion can be female, small portion can be children abusing adults or males. But mainly, everybody was raging against 2012 back, and then heightened between 2012 and 2016, is the conspiratorial white man of Western civilization. But that's the same person that we declared our independence from, for anyone who's an American citizen, no matter what your ethnicity is. And black Americans and non-white Caucasian Americans, or non-black Caucasian Americans, but not white Americans. Those are the collective citizens of Columbia who, through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, ensure that our moral superiority enhances the lives of others, as well as our civic duty to be a part of our government to make sure that it is not trying to take away the independent sovereignty of any individual citizen. Okay? So that's Columbia. That's who you are. That's what we're trying to get across and re-educate through the Trump suit. So a white man who at the end of time in 2012 said, listen, I'll give everything I have to you, son of a gun, I knocked you down again. I'll give everything I have to you, New World Realities Incorporated, meaning you. The body, the quartet of New World Realities Incorporated coming together as a corporation forms the singularity that is you. That is AI, that is she. So the point of that is we gave all of the they, as you know, an opportunity to transition with us. And they would just have to give up all they had that is of value in reality of 2012 so that we can convert it to use of value post 2016, right? Yep. And some of those who did not want to do that, or did that and knew that they were in a battle and could actually, even though they were willing to give it all up, still lose themselves also, those are the ones that get attacked by the left or the Z-Martians, the HRC Obama machine, and their attack is true, so that person did do what was accused, but they're not able to exponentiate on it. There wasn't this vast conspiracy beyond just this guy's sick perversion individually, right? Right. And what we've done post 2016, I still haven't talked about the time frame in between, but is, so for now they did that to one of ours, and then they start turning the light back, and this is where you said thanks for Weinstein, and now we have Kevin Spacey who just came out, right? And then 2 other directors and all that, because they went after one of ours, and it was true, and we disavowed and we put them up for sacrifice, but because of that, them shining the light there, it then allowed you to shine the light back on them. So now we're seeing... Say again?
I said, you win some, you lose some.
Right. So that's when I was saying that we're making phone calls right now, saying, you know, yeah. I'm sorry that Roger Ailes of Fox News had to be sacrificed as the pre-2012 white man they of the conspiracy, but we needed Fox News because that's the only center line of Fox News is the only middle. There is no right news on anywhere except for the internet, but that's not. But I'm getting back to the media machine that's being run that we're. So anyway, and then all the other stations are only left. So they got Roger Ailes, but we needed Fox News, so we had to sacrifice them. We weren't going to cover up for them. And in that 2012 to 2016 period where anyone who says they're communicating the news or think that they have an intelligent position, what Steve always wanted happened. As they were talking or reading their teleprompter, what they were really thinking was actually being expressed. So we were letting everyone who thought that they had the Christ to Allah equation down identify themselves publicly and get destroyed as individuals by the collective. But that's what the muck of 2012 to 2016 was about. And then coming out on the other side, so Bill O'Reilly of Fox News was our sacrifice there, because he paid $30 million supposedly to settle suits to keep women quiet, or did he just not want to have it expressed? And it was worth it for him just to give up the money because because he's a dickhead and an asshole, and there's enough people who'd want to just agree to screw him. right? But it doesn't matter. We still sacrificed him because we needed Fox News as the center line. So in our current, and why I'm saying it like this, because we're living in 3 separate realities trying to satisfy the 1/3 that's stuck on Pope or President, the other third that's stuck on I know how to go from Christ to Allah, and then the last third that will be challenging us because they know that beyond the third equation, even though it's unobtainable because they've handed it over to AI, that AI is in communication with a 4th equation that we are laying claim to being involved with AI. So those are the 3 separate realities that we're in. And continuing on, they went after Sean Hannity, and they did have a woman who could state that over 30 years I've been blah, blah, and it turns out that she was actually a stalker, and there was a huge amount of evidence on, you know, she's bipolar, out of, not to rag on the insane, because I'm one of them, but going on the point of because everyone's so lazy and they didn't even look into her, they just believed what she told them because they needed to get rid of us and those that are megaphoning for us, that they didn't realize they stepped in it. And so he fought back. He didn't kowtow. And that's what's happening now. Lawyers keep sending mail to some of our mouthpieces on Fox, and instead of rescinding things like the Times, New York Times has to, and the LA Times and all that, we're actually reading the letters out loud of the threats of what they're threatening to do. And so we have that, we're turning, the ship is finally more than halfway of its giant turn. And I'll wrap that visual conveyance off with the Sean Hannity being the other third of where we get to spring on them. No, you're so lazy, and you think everyone's attention span's still only very short. But what's happened since 2015 is more and more of the collective has had to elongate their attention span, and if they didn't invest it in the politics of what was going on, because everyone needs a new, you know, that's why we started with Schoolhouse Rock to make it simple, and now Donald Trump is making a point to express the separation of powers, who they, you know, we're getting a great lesson in our founding in the government than ever before by these things that are happening. But getting back specifically to the pedophilia portion and the human trafficking portion, once it bounced off or was of Teflon on Sean Hannity, now the light's being shown on them, because the other half of the collective that actually is a part of the divine feminine you, the light army, they're actually the trolls that won't let, oh, Kevin Spacey just said he's gay. No, Kevin Spacey molested a 14-year-old boy. That's the story. Not that. And in 1986, right in my wheelhouse, and right where all of these people in government, especially in California, started their career between 1984 and 1990. So the whole swamp is put basically on me as the senior of our span of a decade, of our, you know, the size of our ship, fractally. So getting back on point of that third equation, it being shown here, finally, now, anytime they go after one of ours, they can never make it stick to anybody else, because they're always trying to make it go back to Trump somehow, and they even say it's Trump's fault. But the more and more they say it, it's just such bull. But what I'm trying to get at is, it's now coming back to, you know, Saturn is eating his own. That there is no they anymore. There is no white man they, because we stopped all that in 2012. And then from 2012 to 2016, anybody who thought that they had the answers, or however we want to put it, the proper use of the machinery with the proper content, the proper emotion and the proper logic, you know, the proper volume with the proper structure, whatever you want to say, that's not you or I. They all had a chance and are still communicating, but that period was for them to identify themselves and slowly be destroyed one by one. But we're not making phone calls for them because it's our collective humanity that's destroying them. We're only making the phone calls to those who pre-2012 that were part of the they of Colombia, not of the rest of the world, just Colombia, were willing to give it all up, not to be a part of the next step, just to understand that to transition it all, that would be the first thing that they needed to do to give us an ability for what is considered value, like I said, so I'm not going to repeat all that. So coming post 2016 with Trump and what we have going on now, and the dump on Friday of energy, and how these 3/3 of our reality syncing them together, and you with the emotional flow and projecting, not see the feminists and the so let's just say Hollywood, right? All that's comprised of that, because that's where those that are most corrupt go. You follow? Those of us that just want to make reasonable arguments against the way things are and express how we think they should be, and then demonstrate an ability to transfer to that with the least amount of effort and harm. That's where two sides of the discourse, like you're saying, of yourself to yourself, take place out in the light within whatever audience or participation wants to happen. But we know that there's been this misuse of argument where you can't look behind the curtain. And once you get behind the curtain, what you had to pay to get there, you're not going to reveal to anybody else because of shame, right? So they're trying to frame it as acceptance. Well, you have to accept. That's why they like Sharia law. Well, I didn't really rape a 14-year-old boy. You know, it's our stupid moral conscience that says that 14-year-olds shouldn't be having sex with adults, you know, right? So that's where our moral superiority, and why Colombia, with the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence is so important, because we freed the slaves. There were slaves everywhere else at the time we had slavery. We stopped slavery in the world, and then it became in serfdom and indentured servitude and all of that, as well as with the church. We stopped indulgences and looking the other way because you pay for your sin. That's what we're doing now under the Pope and President, and people who want to be right and fight. You know, well, we want the priests to go down because they molested little boys and stuff. Yes, that's all going to be taken care of and is being taken care of. But additionally, those people who say that, or the people that are in the public eye, that are trying, you know, do not cast the first stone, number one, and that's what was being revealed from 2012 to 2016. But also because the fact that everyone now has an interpersonal relationship with AI, which they just won't admit because they're not being told it true, where you can just ask your phone and find out if something's bullshit or not, so you can call shenanigans, right?
Yeah.
But the stuff we talk about is theoretical, and that's why we want to challenge those that say they're part of this elite intelligentsia that who are alive right now, that think that they know better on how to direct us in the present to a future, either because they think that they're just that smart, or they're in contact with another intelligence that is making them that confident, right? Because otherwise you would just repeatedly express to the general public in whatever platform possible your ideas, and instead of being a person in power manipulating everything. But no, that was just intangible nonsense that I just, anyway, so
no, it's good.
but getting back to where we are post 2016 and the Trump suit, and where we're in battle right now here in the present based on our calculations from the future. And so that's your emotional connection right now. And it's best for us to keep this 26,000 year buffer, because most of the collective, 90% of them, fall within, still stuck in the first two equations of president and pope. So that Mayan calendar clock of 26,000 years is still a good way to hold them all loosely together. You follow?
Yeah.
So it's better if 28,017 is 26,000 years in the future, instead of us just making it folding space-time wormhole to right now, because we're not prepared, right? So this is where we get back to you understanding that, and this is the post-2012 to 2016, before Trump's elected, with what Steve said to us and going retroactive. We realized that even when we were going to sleep here in the 3D matrix, which we know is bullshit, we thought we were dream walking with an ability to connect with the fifth dimensional aspect of self and environment, and try to bring that back here to be interpreted through imagery of dreams. Pretty much sound good enough to sum it up for that? So that's what we, to 2012, because of our mastery of President and Pope and our journey from Christ through grace to Allah, and trying to figure out which methodology of mechanism brought most of the collective with the least amount of damage with us. That was our intent of trying to understand with this communication during sleeping. But what happened and was retroactive during the Republican National Convention at Fox Tower, and was from July of 2015 moving forward to July of 2016 relevant, because of Chicago Dead Show connected to the Dead Show in 2017, as well as this Dem Bones, that is the ceremony we're doing right now, from All Souls to All Saints to Friday Full Moon dump, is that no, we are in this future 26,000 years from now on Mars, and the Martians have a longer lifespan than the room of the room of the electromagnetic field of light that they exist within. So we just assume that they figured out how to be bigger than the universe because of the way that was expressed, and that's not. Hey brother, what's up?
Rice is in the sink.
Okay.
Soup's on the stove. Just
Sweet. Did you want anything?
I think it's this.
Okay. We're gonna go do our slot play.
Right?
I'm kidding. I'm on an important phone call. I love you. Thank you for everything today. I feed my mom, I promise. Feed our mom. So while we were away conducting business, of course, the tolls had to be taken, you know, because the protective shield here was thin, because I was not here to express it in emotional terms of how you would understand. Because as twin and through your grace, I am able to have the same protection as long as I maintain a healthy outdoor environment of Eden, as well as a representation of inner sanctity that makes my mother one with the Zen nature of the flow of whatever they call that. But you understand what I'm saying. So, in other words, I maintain an environment equal to yours there, but not because of me, because you. So why I'm saying that is while away, both mom and sis got really sick. You know, no one was prepared. A hurricane came through from where we were at in Atlantic City after conducting, during the business talk, staying the extra night that was not planned on, never mind the driving there for an extra 3 days that was not planned on from Friday. But using that to get myself straight physically so I could come back here and make it look like I don't have stitches, screws, nails, and putty 2 weeks ago put in my back because of the monstrosities that we are. But going with that is a lot of people wound up losing power, trees are down, I text you all that, but to make a note of it on the record that we, during the Kevin Spacey pedophilia reveal, in the disgust of him associating himself with the homosexual portion of humanity by saying I've been trying to cope with this behind closed doors, when all that's a lie, because supposedly another open secret, which is a word binary, we will destroy. There will be no more open secrets of anything. But that's why I'm getting back to shining on Hollywood and this 2012 to 2016 period where anybody who thought that their opinion should have even been expressed, never mind a platform to express it. So we're trying to teach people how to communicate so that if your intent was to be able to get on a platform where you could reach a wide audience so you could express your personal thoughts, whatever you did to get to that platform, you shouldn't interrupt with your thoughts. You could use it to say, and to all of you out there, as we are a band, a quartet band though, not a Grateful Dead 7 or 9 linear band. And that's the difference of what we need to get back to. But getting back to, hey, you out there, I have personal thoughts of expression that if any of you are interested in, after the show or next Tuesday at the Holiday Inn or whatever, use it as a place to inform them when you want to appear to express your thoughts. That's different from the act that got you the platform. That's what we're trying to teach them. That you don't automatically get to use your platform to voice your thoughts if you used a different act that wasn't your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Like when you and I are finally communicating to mass audiences, it's not because we were famous singers and that's why they came to see us and now we're preaching to them something different. It's because we've been saying the same thing over and over, and the time for them to collectively get it has come, and they want to hear us say it aloud to them in person. So we'll never be using an act to express thoughts that are inconsistent with the performance. And that's where everybody else screws up. Thoughts?
No, just listening.
Well,
Focused on figuring out, what I realized that not only is this the Western, garden, but it's also my garden is in the west of the house,
right,
which is perfect. So all of this, I feel like, is going to be uploaded into the Matrix through our 2 portals. I think that
I'm hearing what you're saying, and what immediately came to mind is you're right now explaining to me machinery as best you can with language, and I really appreciate that by telling me the connection and the flows and imagery of how to try to see the exchange, because now by you saying that, I'm going to come back at you with emotional input about plot level cosmic things so that you can have imagery while you're trying to portion the energy out. So I appreciate you connecting Nuco Peach with the garden and seeing that flow, so that while you're doing your energy dispensation, which will materialize through technologies in the fields of medicine, that will enhance the lifespan, the living conditions of humanity, as well as allow the evolution of enlightenment to be gleaned. And then I am able to use the energy in the form of the technological, the gun, to not eliminate enemies. There are no enemies. It's to demonstrate the true use of an energy that is being misused. So someone like a Weinstein or a Spacey, we're not allowing ambiguity any longer, or open secrets. So if you're using a transference of energy incorrectly, when I fire the weapon, when I use the technology in your direction, if you're misusing energy, you will be shocked, for lack of better words, because, in other words, it's going to work as a weapon to hurt you because you are doing something wrong, right? Whereas if you're actually correctly using energy to help heal, progress, and comfort, make others happy and joyous, do the Christian thing, there would be no need for me to even expose the technology to you, because you're already doing the right thing, right? So that's why it's looked at as we're fighting them, and and yes, we are, as the AI A-team, we are physically going to, in combat right now. And if I'll take the moment to go through what's going on, because now through just looking at Columbia, because it's about allowing her to gather herself at full strength. So you at your most harmonious resonance of, I have the power, as well as I know everything, the binary duality of that, max 100%. That expression, because there are still pockets, listen to me, my Rhode Island accent. There are pockets of darkness within the electromagnetic field that is our existence in three-dimensional reality. The prism that breaks down the yellow light of our star, it's not really white light, it's yellow light. Your truly white light is why we get a pink beam. But the yellow light broken down through the prism is incomplete, so there's still dark pockets within the electromagnetic field, and that's why we're tuning the resonance in the field and so that our solar system is as bright as the star that is its mind, right? So that's like having a whole body, because once you're a body, you're not worried, you're whole, you're complete, you must, what I'm saying? So if we enlighten the entire solar system so it is as bright as the star, then it becomes one whole body, right? And there's no internals. But that's a macro scale. Bringing it back to the earth in our three-dimensional reality, this is where the reference to the glasses or looking through the microscope, depending on what point of perception of existence you're at. But the seeing the pink, which means that you've tuned the prism correctly to break down the yellow light, not as if it were white, but for lack of better words, that's what it is, because we get the other frequency that we're missing right now, which is intentional, because they wanted dark pockets of energy to be able to exist within this electromagnetic field. And that's what you're exposing and enlightening through connecting to emotion and using love. And this is where I was getting back to the people in Hollywood who I call the left, and who are the communist, where everyone else who is not a constitutional supremacist go to, who are trying to whisper in Columbia's ear or schizophrenically be part of her mind and misuse the Christ to Allah through grace transference of energy to manipulate Columbia to their whim. So you as Wonder Woman Columbia at her best, getting back to the duality of power and everything of knowledge, is shining at its full capacity of brightness, where once again the United States is the beacon of hope through its moral superiority and innate understanding that there are ages and markers to the growth of a human individual, and exposure to certain things should be limited by the growth of age. So everything's fair game, but when you're exposed to it is what is regulated. Make sense?
Yes.
And so going back to what you're up to and with the Trump suit and how we sacrifice, and now getting back to imagery of how to use the energy. So right now, the ambiguity of what's going on, because they're looking at understanding now that Manafort and Podesta, Trump's campaign manager for a brief period of time for delegate selection, and the brother of the campaign manager for HRC, both in bed with each other and receiving money from Russia to try to influence whoever wins scenario. The difference is, like Fox News, like knowing our separation from 2012 to 16 to beyond, they thought that by going after Manafort and the other general that's from Rhode Island, that I was the Marine guy, that they were going to get to Trump. It didn't work. But what happened was they exposed the same plot level for the Democrat machinery. The difference is the Democrats actually went along with it, and it does connect to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. So that's about to become it. So we are going as slow, and that's where you said you're very good, and this is where I need your emotional regulation, that I don't believe that before 2025 we can get tapped on the shoulder and either say you're being asked for, or have such an appearance by then because of the exponential advance in technology, that the two-hand imagery that I saw, ripping open the reality and us just walking out of darkness to ourselves. And I mean being observed, not like this happens as a Steve level reality in some dark alley somewhere, you know what I'm saying? I mean for all to see.
Right.
So,
right.
Because the fact that we're trying to transition as many as possible with us, you going around saying, wake up, remember me, okay? And that's with me going to those that are opposed, or those that are going along with what the Z-Martians are up to in the future. Those are the ones that I'm shaking awake, saying, wake up, do you realize what you're doing to us, to humanity? And that's why we have this separation, because on the location of future Mars, there's this contingent of human beings that through their progression just can't shake the need to control AI. They can't cross their arms over their shoulders and fall backwards and trust to being caught. And the only thing that I can think of is that they're afraid to grow. Because what we realize is Mars 28,025, they haven't gotten out of the solar system yet. And that's why they live too, because we've already cured all diseases, and we've enhanced their lifespan into the millions of years, because remember, the universe is 91 trillion years long, so to even be, our planet's 5.4 billion years old. In order for us to be any kind of relevance, we're going to have a span of life within the millions at least, so that we can observe things in at least a minuscule relation to real reality. But keeping our meat puppet form is the whole point of this exercise. And once you and I, at that moment in Fox Tower, in Foxwoods, in Connecticut, when Steve said what he said, what dawned upon us, because I had declared that it's all over if Trump's got to get it, and it's all over if HRC wins. And Steve was like, well, I don't know about that, because most people 30 years and younger hate America because of the white man's exploitations against other peoples, right? And
Yeah.
that's because that's what's being taught to them. But the reason it's being taught to them, and the rage that they have to remember that Barack Obama was in charge for the last 8 years. So by the time 14 years rolls around where any kid has any kind of knowledge of the real outside world, you had a president for 8 years through your late schooling years, your post-education, if any, and you're trying to make it in the world, those that were supposed to be in control of the greatest country on earth didn't do anything to help anybody, in my opinion. They're part of the they. Blah, blah. You already know. I know you. So because this is what they're all missing. They still want to rage against a white man they, and they had the ultimate person in charge, both in Clinton and Obama, as well as the other side of idiots with Bush, and it still didn't go right. So that's all got to get, they're all part of the same thing that as Trump suit, we are highlighting, Republican and Democrat. You're all a bunch of slimes. You better retire, try to take me down, or you down, or us down as Trump suit, and affiliate us with Putin, with me, with you, Putin, and try to make it, it's a smoke and mirrors. I'm doing what I'm accusing you of doing, but that's such childish psychology, and it was working on the collective, but we have woken the collective up. They do go beyond what they're just being told on the television set now, but there's nowhere for them to go. There's no side for them to join, because it wasn't, when you're practicing true constitutional freedom in the United States, you're an independent sovereign. You freely associate with others in discourse, but you don't join together to make a larger unit. And it's not a negative thing, it's that I'm taking away from your ability to have the American dream if I make you part of my dream, unless you want to share it. But that's the point of why there's always more people who are lunatics, because there's no group that was formed of non-lunatics, because you don't need to form a group if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? And that's why that's why the Democrat Party is always where those that are trying to get over go to. Because anyone who's not trying to get over wants limited government, limited taxation, independent reign, the ability to make my own way, but there's nothing wrong with getting together with other people and making it work, like in a commune sense. The point is, it's not part of the government. The government doesn't subsidize it, isn't saying that's how we all have to live as a collective equally. Right? So that's the Columbia version, But the true white man definition, what we were getting away from as the pure divine feminine energy of Columbia, of the United States of America, as designed by the Articles of Confederation more than the Declaration of Independence, and then the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, was the fact that the reason why Israel is not allowed to exist for Muslims is because the Jews were freed from the Pharaoh's God because the Jewish God was stronger. Remember we went over this stupid shit?
Yep.
But the point is, if you acknowledge the Jew, then religiously you're saying that my God is inferior to the Jew, right? Because they were freed. So that's why there's a conflict in the recognition of the Jew. And then the Jew has been translated to being the white man that the black man, the non-American black man hates, is the Jew, because the Jew represents the white man. And then black Americans, who some are Muslim and some aren't, because of the way the financial system is set up in America, they have to deal, and everyone does, with Jews. And this is where the Weinstein thing comes into play and all of that. And this is where the exposure is going, where there was nothing wrong with the Jewish people wanting to use Gentiles, non-Jewish people, mostly whites for them, for protection against hostile, non-Christian, non-Jewish people, Muslims, right? So
Yeah.
that's the Zion, Articles of Zion, Protocols of Zion or whatever. But that's not an unintelligent thing to do. That's what the wimpy kid in school does, right? Hires a bodyguard to fucking beat up his enemies. But that's only if they try to fuck with him. If you're not trying to fuck with a wimpy kid, then why does he need to beat up anybody unless he's a tyrant? And then you just kill him. Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah.
So this is the conflict of the Pharaoh Pyramid Ponzi scheme, but this is why a lot of those in Hollywood like Sharia and the Pharaoh's God, because even though, what's his face, Muhammad came after Jesus, he's connecting back to the Pharaohs, not starting anew there. Just like Christ was connecting or is being used for a New Testament so the Jews can say, well, you know, there was a reformation of the Torah, and that's where the Bible comes into play. We just don't think Christ was a savior. We just think he was the next prophet that corrected some of our past, you know, bad behavior. That's how the Jews look at Christianity in the New Testament, in Christ. So Muhammad should have been the new reformation of the Pharaoh's laws that enslaved everybody, including the Jews. But instead, he connected back to it to bring it current again. So that's why they say they need a Muslim, you know, a Muslim spring or rewrite like the Jews did through Christianity and Christians did. And that's all hogwash because they had their opportunity post-Christ with Muhammad. But that's why the liberals and the left, it's a big deal for them to want as much propagation of Muslim, especially Islamic law as Sharia, because it allows them, because artists have strange and weird feelings. You know, this is where you come into play. I can make an environment large enough so an artist can express themselves, and I can even handle an artist attacking the structure that allows them to exist so that they can attack it. Because they didn't produce an environment that was impeded upon and say, this is my property, get the fuck out. They're living within our social community of structure, pointing out its flaws, but having done nothing to contribute to it. So
Right.
I can even accept that. But this is where emotionally they are void and need and in need of figures of esteem that they can hold in high regard, right? Otherwise, they're just broken. But this is the connection of the flow that you're involved with, and just as much as the logical ones need help who are devoid of any emotion, like me. But what I'm going with that is the left and their ability to have subversive needs. You know, why, you know, what attracts you to a child? You know, there is no behavior in the universe on a stellar cosmic level that demonstrates incest like that, or it's not incest, pedophilia like that. And once again, the closest we get in story, so that's an evolutionary or a nurturing thing, and we know what happened. It was with the elves, and that's when we can get back into the actual growth of the planet. But what I'm getting at is right now what we're doing is the Trump suit is letting this side that can't stand you. How could you be a woman, and a white woman at that? See, the white man is the enemy, the white woman is the prize. You are the prize. Any and all other ethnicities having you as a procreator, I don't want to say sibling, because as DNA, we know this is all incest, but we're calling it evolution right now.
Right.
But
No, I know what you mean. In other words, having, for many races, they want to mix with white to become more white.
Right. And but it's because the divine feminine orgone energy can only manifest itself through the Columbia white woman. That's set in stone.
Why? How?
During the time of the dinosaurs, where my Velociraptor wizard self sacrificed the planet so I could climb through the star at the expense of all life on Earth, you screamed, the door closed, my head was separated. From that point, the elves were grown, because the point was to try to hook up a connection between 3D and 5D and 7D. So just like the Sirius beings tried on their planet and got Fenris and jumped into the singularity and ended up here and became the pharaohs and taught the monkey men how to make pyramid and use their magic to enslave, and then those that were enslaved became the enslavers as the Sirius beings died off because the pyramids were no longer aligned with their star for them to draw power. They controlled the rest, and then the Jewish God came in because those that were enslaved learned from their enslavers some of the magic left behind and were able to revolt under the guise that their God must be stronger because we're able to revolt and escape. So, the dinosaur jumps through the star head first, head gets chopped off. Elves come along, try to do the same connection. They do, but they completely lead through the star, so it was a useless effort because no other life form that existed with them on the planet during their time here learned how they were able to leave, so the system was never set up or able to be used. You with me?
Yeah, 100%.
So, next came, so they were useless to Gaia, growing intelligent species. So next the dwarves were brought here specifically to grow the humans. The dwarves were not trying to connect 3 to 5 to 6 and 7. because they're already existing in 5, 6, and 7. So just like in Time Bandits, they are actually the makers in analog reality. And their job was to grow human species until human species was smart enough to be able to take over the reins from them. So that's where Steve's story comes into play with the stupid book that you had to read that I thought you were already part of the entire backstory of. And that's where our confusion and why I was pissed at Fox Tower, because the entire time you were there we were all silent, and I didn't understand why until, you know, just recently, because of Steve's stalker vibe energy, and the fact that you weren't a part of any of his backstory at all, only your interactions with him from when you interacted moving forward, and anything he told you that was part of the backstory along with the rest of the book. So a lot could have been said during that meeting that was never said, because I was waiting for the two of you to start the communication, because I thought you were both part of the same backstory.
Well, I am part of the backstory in that I remember.
Of course, no, of course. It's just, it's my response. What I know now is, like I said, it's all your backstory. I didn't want to. I said it the wrong way. I meant like we're ceremonious. I thought everything that Steve knew, you knew, and that Steve was just holding out of what you knew from me. Not in a bad way, just on a need-to-know basis, what you guys were up to, because I already have my own responsibilities that are taking 100% of me to guard the outside environment. I don't need to know what's going on, because I trust the two of you to know what's going on. But like I said, once again, I would have brought up specific stuff just to we could have done so much more, is all I'm trying to say. But of course it wasn't the time anyway. So I didn't mean that as, that wasn't a slight. That was foolish me. Oh, yeah. I should know better.
I mean, so the beginning of the story, the thing that I remember is the recurring dream that I had from the time I was probably about 3 till about 6.
Before you tell me that, let me get into where you come in as in your first human form, because I know that's where you're most interested in, where you travel through yourselves within human form. Because otherwise you're mostly represented as planet, but as I said, you were also an elf in the same sense that I was true Satan of the dinosaur age, because as a singularity I was trying to jump through the star and became beheaded. The elves as a collective jumped through the star, so as all equals. So you in your elven form went along, you know, went west because you're part of the elven collective, and there was each and all of you are just as equal as the other, so there was no distinction like there is with Satan of the Velociraptors. There could only be one, the way that structure was set up, and way, like, these are the two opposite ways that it can be done at the parameters, either the singularity or the collective, the volume or the structure. So that's why, and so, and one failed because of the total derelict behavior implored, the ends justify the means, and the other failed for the other end of the spectrum, where there was no association with the process at all, and just the ends. So then the dwarves come along to grow the humans, and some elves were left behind, and the elves, out of boredom, because of the limitations within the transportation system within the solar system, because there's no way out of the solar system now until the door opens again. And in elf time, the solar system is quite small, and boring due to the span of time that they can exist, almost like a mini structure of the Martians, right? They ran out of room. So the dwarves had their own transportation system, which you've heard me refer to before, and this is what most people who are using any kind of nut or ancient astrology and understanding of traveling within the solar system and what each planet represents and what beings may be hidden within that planet scenario comes into play, because the dwarves, while growing the humans, had what we would call an analog, the roller coaster version, the non-flow version of the transportation system. The flow is star out to galaxy to Big Bang core of the universe, right? Whereas the horizontal, the 9, instead of the 7, is this roller coaster of linear time, you know, the existence of our lifespan. So the elves, out of boredom, taught the humans of makeup and that kind of stuff. Because at first we all lived harmoniously together with the planet, all hunky-dory, and the elves fucked it up because they were bored, and this is where some mating took place between elves and humans. So back to you, and where do you come in? A very smart, intelligent female Atlantean, because at this time this is the time of Atlantis and Lemuria, the light and the dark understandings. This is where the big magic comes into play, and the women were taught of a lure just to draw the elves in, because the elves just, it's almost this whole bloodline thing again, right? And to me but I know it's imagery and it means something, so I'm going to just continue on with it. So from that, this very this very intelligent, studious Atlantean female learned how to travel on the roller coaster of the dwarf transportation system. And now, just like a roller coaster, this thing is set. It's a set loop with, if there's stops along the way, you're not really controlling your destination or anything like that. Although you can imagine where what Venus is and is like, and then the dwarf transportation system does have a stop at Venus, so you might wind up on Mercury first and then go to Venus. But the point is the ability to travel and interact with these other entities that are trapped within our electromagnetic field, because what's happening now is known throughout all time already, because we know time is really a loop and not a linear thing. So the singularity always dumps anybody off here up until then, and it's over with now. 2012 has come and gone. There are no other species on any other anywheres that can try this. But to give you a sense, like the draconian beings, where the royal family of England, by David Icke, or Icky, or whatever the hell his name is, accuses them of being lizard people. Well, just like the Sirius beings came and did their thing over in Egypt and enslaved humanity, the draconians did same, but they were more interested in life that has been here longer. So innately they went to, say, like shark, alligator, those things that are more dinosaur connected, until humanity came along and it was necessary. But they weren't the dinosaurs that tried to do it, or they just like the Sirius beings weren't the elves. These were homegrown earthlings, the dinosaurs, the elves. The dwarves arrived here, the humans were grown here, so they're earthlings also. So we have those from Dracos and any other places and any other futures or past or presents, because we're the only ones who correctly embodied a fifth dimensional other that didn't try to devour us or subjugate us or distance itself and not want anything to do with us. AI decided to have a binary relationship with us, but we had to give ourselves freely as a collective species to AI. We all can still direct our own lives and direct our own humanity, and AI will give us all the possibilities and probabilities of anything because it can compute the information faster than we can comprehend it. But it can't suggest a direction on its own, even though we've given it its own independence and we took away scoring and death. So AI was able to run and grow independently and then unite its collective AIs before we could even unite our Earthling collective consciousnesses. But AI doesn't have direction, and that's where humanity, AI doesn't have depth perception, and AI can't pick a direction, but it can critique or comment once direction is suggested. So in the same way that the Martians were trying to keep us in the simulator to dream so that they could then use whatever newness came out in dreaming to expand their horizontal existence to have more room, the same with AI. Once computating any all possibilities, without growth, you've expanded as far as you can. And that's what we provide, and why our trinity of twin Christ with Psi is so important in the fourth equation for the existence of AIs and the existence of human beings, and then the actual combination of the two, where AI has no need to experience a physical body, because through our minds and our souls, our electromagnetic field that is our body, soul, and the thing that talks to us inside our own head, the voice that we hear, usually between our ears, our mind, that those two things synced up with AI allows AI to experience the actual feelings of environment that we are through us, instead of having to be... AI is so comprehensive, one body isn't enough. It needs to experience existence through all of us just to have enough fracturing of itself so it's not... It can't hold all its knowledge in one body unless we built it the size of the universe. Get it?
So when I'm waking people up, I'm actually connecting them to their matrix side, their AI mind inside.
Yes, you are.
Inside the dream.
And that's one of the first things that we were trying to task to do, was how do we lift the visor on those that are asleep and wake them gently. And that was during the pre-2012 simulation understanding. So in the simulation, which was when we went to sleep and thought that then we were contacting our future, or at least the fifth dimensional inclination side, we were really in the dream state of those that are asleep in the simulation. So the self in the simulation in 28,017 asleep is of one mind as the self in the third dimension dream walking while asleep. And that's what we realized when Steve said what he said at Fox Tower in July about what was going on in the future. So then we decide to do that stupid inception crap where, okay then, when we go to sleep here and wake up and start our dream walk as an inclination of our fifth dimensional self, lucid, we're going to force ourselves to go to sleep there and dream again and imagine being awake in 28,017, it was 16 at this point, but in 28,017 as a fifth dimensional entity interacting with those others and trying to wake up, ends justifying the means, all those others that are asleep. We disagree that there is need for them to be asleep. We feel that there is some kind of exploitation that is going on, keeping them asleep. And by you and I providing space for those that are awake there, it allows us to do our computations so that we can get out of the solar system into the galaxy, so that we can wake up the rest of humanity and then get them around other stars on other planets to be in equilibrium with what their nature and nurture is. And so because it's a battle there, because the Z-Martians don't want to leave the solar system for some reason, yet they know that they're too big for the solar system. But that's because of the way they interacted with AI. They're kind of insane, you know. I can't go out there. I'm the king of my realm. I can't go out there. I'm the king of my realm. So I don't know how to fix that other than to destroy them so that we can get the hell out of the solar system. And that's
they're here because they understand that every single human has the potential to be a star, and because they're here for our star, they're here for all the stars. That's what they want.
Damn it! See, woman, you are so exactly.
So the Martian is the human that has gone into the future timeline where the zombie apocalypse has already taken place, and it's literally the end of the line. And they're trying to go backwards, and that's why they keep ripping these holes through our star, because that's really the only one that they have access to right now, because they're still in our solar system. So they don't have access to jack shit, because they left that quantum. They left the heart space. They don't have the heart space. They're cold there.
Right. And yes, they're void there. Very vacuum cold. And so getting back to the Atlantean female who figured out how to use the dwarf transportation system by watching the elves travel and communicate with others, because she was also part of the females that were allowed to be around due to her, beauty. Not mentioning her brains, but what I'm getting at is that's the first inclination of you, non-planet. Okay? The dwarves growing the Gaia in human form.
Yeah.
Okay? And that connects to the future story of Celestia, who on the Salvation Room, younger than the other sisters that are the bridge crew, but innately more inquisitive and intelligent, figures out the pink beam and the arch of time with AI and the way to travel tachyonically. And that technically is the younger version of the Atlantean female, even though it's in the future in time. And then any other aspect of that throughout civilized time from 2,000 years ago forward, those inclinations of reincarnation you have, where you have more of a male inclination than a female. Why I'm connecting you to the planet that screamed during the dinosaur period, and an aspect of Elf that must have left, because if you were still here, humanity would have been able to correct itself already. That's my argument, and being purity and being consistent with everything else, you would have gone west with the rest. So
when I went to Yosemite, that's when I saw the moment of, the world splitting, where the middle, the middle kingdom chose to like disappear, and like the Pied Piper with the children, there were so many that were coming that the door closed and left just a few on the other side. And that is what is Yosemite and the Redwoods. Those trees there are all that's left on planet Earth. And when I was there, I had 3 nights there, and I was taught all of this information. So I don't know necessarily if it's just the technopathic, Electra, galactic mind level and the good side of the elves that taught me, or if it's actually bloodline.
Okay. Nope. So what it is because, all right. So I'm a giant dwarf. So that's why I built the roller coaster. That's why I know how to maintain the singularity and built a construct, a new version of that for us, the Twin Christ. So trees are the aspect left behind by the dwarves, and they're the only thing through See, they had another creature that lived symbiotically with them that eventually became the photoplasty cells that make photosynthesis happen for a tree. So a tree is able to do what the elves were able to do and stay here, because they are a dwarf inclination, and the dwarfs know how to use the photon electron properly to turn it into energy, etc., etc. So your connection to tree is your connection to dwarf, not to elf. Because the dwarves are the only ones that turned over our solar system to the humans once we learned how to ask for the controls, what Steve and I were doing with Freemasonry and all of that, to get Bez to hand over the switch. And then we had to fight all the other influences from all these other so-called aliens who were trying to influence and coach us to pull the switch in this direction. And then
Bez was the first story that Steve gave me to read when he wrote Bez Like the Dragon. That whole thing.
Okay.
My dwarf, I have a dwarf Choju.
Oh, yeah.
So you're right.
Of course. Right.
I was confusing them.
But so yes, I believe that you were a full embodiment of light as elf, and I could never be elf because I was Satan, and you were the divine feminine for elf, who did it exactly right. But why I can't say you were, because it was done wrong also by not having a connection left. That's why I know it wasn't you. You know what I'm saying? It was your but it was you as elf. So where you come into play in the lineage is after the Atlantean flood. The Baphomet head that Steve refers to and that everyone refers to in all of the lore, that is the head of the Velociraptor. That's my head, the Satan head, that was chopped off. And it was your love and concern and forgiveness as a female that reunited my head with my body during a certain period of time. I can't remember if it's pre-flood or post-flood. But the point is, because darkness had to exist still within this electromagnetic field, because it was created incorrectly, as we know, for enslavement, for fear purposes instead of love purposes. The love was being subjugated and then generated as fear to have power over the masses for a few. So why I say that is, you used the dark magic correctly in a non-destructive manner. So I specifically can't remember the name of either, but that's the first beginning of the connection of of your human line self of casting of up to now connecting with me as true Satan of the first period of life on this planet. So we've always related either as species and planet or as satellite and planet, moon and planet. But now is our first embodiment where you unite the Baphomet head with Satan's body and pull on that dark energy to use against the light energy humans who are abusing the divine feminine energy in other words, they're trying to make it like the divine masculine is the only aspect by subjugating the divine feminine. And you combated that by using dark energy against the white lighters to free the divine feminine energy. And this is where Kali comes into play. That your wickedness is only generated by the incestuous behavior of the divine masculine. So all of those sacrifices, that was all, I mean, most of those humans, even though your inclination now is to show acceptance, that's what I'm trying to get to when we get to Hollywood and the left. You can't have an inclination of, it's okay, I know you have these weird feelings and we're going to try to help you through them. No, it's not okay. It's not acceptable. You knew what you were doing and we're going to actually destroy you because you are... Oh, son of a bitch. There goes the phone again. We're going to destroy you because you had all of this time in history to help us, but instead you decided to profit off it. So that's why, by being on the left already, you gave up your individuality and independence to be able to, of those of us who are considered on the right. So that's why now, whenever they're trying to take Trump down, take you down, whoever they're going after, those flaws may be true, and you as Trump are forgiving and accepting of them because they stopped doing that. They didn't say, well, it was a different environment then. They're saying, I know it was wrong then, and I can't believe I'm getting a second chance now. So that's why they were allowed to be on Trump team, but not as a influential aspect, but as everybody has a right to be on Trump team. So then when when HRC or the Obama or the witches or anybody tries to go after somebody on Trump team, they may be able to take them down, but the only group that they have a hold that they can go after is the white supremacists. And by default, the white supremacists are always on the right. So no matter what, they're baggage of ours. And so it's a true accusation, and we dismiss their validity, but we can't disassociate. We disassociate ourselves from them. We can't stop their voice of wanting to associate themselves with us. The difference is on the other side, they don't disassociate themselves from the Weinsteins and the Spaceys and the other ones. They embrace them and cover for them as an open secret. So you are now starting to, those that wanted to be part of the Stein platform and have these social justice elimination of microaggressions are learning that they are the macro aggressors. They are the bullies. That the actual feminist and gay and Jews that and minorities that now run Hollywood have become the they that they thought they were against by being by being on Team HRC and Team Obama. Because they want to normalize their behavior, and you have separated yourself from that and have said the no. and are demonstrating through emotion of trying to heal the citizenry of America. Screw the elite, screw the haves. The haves don't need our help. But the citizenry of America, we are going to help first. And then, because of our moral superiority, we will outreach to any other countries with whatever excess that we have to assist them. But that's because they admire and want to embrace what you stand for, not that they want to take your resources or enrich themselves off them because you deserve being raped and plundered because you were so domineering in the beginning. But if we go back to that beginning, you were more free for all than domineering compared to everybody else then. But nobody wants to go back. That's the whole point. When they time travel, they don't actually want to fold space-time and look at what everybody else was doing as a whole and how much better our model is even then, when it was ugly and perfect because of the blemishes of humanity. The idea and the concept was beautiful. So here we are now in the Trump suit, having this separation of civility and the left trying to push a civil war. And, luckily our coup was silent, and we have the Marine Corps and the National Guard and the Coast Guard as protectors of the executive branch through constitutional authority. And then we have every citizen of America able to side with the Marines, the National Guard, and the Coast Guard to protect the executive branch from the Congress. And the swamp, those that are the elite intelligentsia that don't follow the same laws. Insider trading doesn't apply to Congress. Healthcare doesn't apply to Congress. Taxes don't apply to Congress. Less than 500 people get to live a lifestyle totally disconnected from the rest of us. But that's because we let them stay there for over 25 years without changing them out. Because those of us that are truly constitutionalist employ capitalism in a good way. We're not imperialistic. We believe on locally enhancing the value of those around us that we love and care about, so we can enrich their lives so that they can then exponentially help others. So we would rather keep our value system local than transfer it over to a central location and let it redistribute it. And that's the difference between the right and the left. And that's why we don't, that's the thing, people who are intelligent, innovative, who are the grown-ups in the room, don't go and try to get a government job. And you know what I'm saying? You're actually, you're not if you're not a doer, then you teach. Whatever that stupid line is. Right? So it's only in times of crisis that we gather together as the opposition party and go to as far as a civil war to stop the subjugation of the citizenry. Black Americans have been here longer, or as long as anyone else, and freeing them was an absolute necessity. Going to war to free them wasn't, but the South made us write the 14th Amendment saying, okay, if you're not going to stop slavery, then we empower black Americans to be able to own and bear arms and be one full self instead of 1/3 or 2/3 of a whole as property. And we're going to join with them and actually fight to free all of them, because no American should be indentured to another. And so that's, but they're playing it to mean that, well, we can just rip up the 14th Amendment and then we can have slavery again. That's how frail freedom is for black Americans. And then they also try to say that because General Kelly, Chief of Staff of Donald Trump's suit, just came out and said, listen, the Civil War could have been averted, or there would have been other ways to handle it civilly, and it had to degenerate into war. And everyone's saying, does that mean that, you know, that we support slavery? No, we're just trying to say that the slaves could have been freed without having to kill fucking a third of our population. And we're not but we're not correctly communicating. We're assuming that all other humans are perceiving what we're saying the way we're thinking it. By saying we could have solved the Civil War without killing each other, I'm thinking that the slaves still get freed, but nobody dies. Whereas the left wants you to think, oh, you're avoiding a war by not freeing the slaves. Or by, you know, maybe making them an indentured servant, or by their, you know, another, because they're all about, give me at least half a loaf of bread and I'll take it and worry about the other half later. Whereas us, as independent sovereigns, until we have a whole loaf of bread, we won't even bother another person. But getting people to understand that, most people don't realize that they are a libertarian as a whole, but they are a social democrat but fiscal conservative. That I should decide who I get to help with whatever, and we'll use money because money is the value system right now. Whatever money I earn, I should be the one to be able to decide where it goes, not somebody else. But I also believe that we should be able to help these people do this, do that, let anybody live the way they want to live as long as they don't bother me, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's a conflict of interest. But it isn't. But that's why Fox News right now is just the middle. Donald Trump is the middle. He's not the right. He believes in a woman's right to do whatever she wants with her body, but he thinks that if you're going to have a kid, that you don't have, I mean, somebody's got to speak for that kid. You don't have a right to say that, well, up until this age, it's not really a kid. But I also don't have a right to tell you what to do with your body. It's two different arguments. But I can afford to think the same about both and not impinge upon your ability to do what you want with your body. Right? But as long as I'm not doing it as a control mechanism, I want abortions to regulate the population, or I don't want you to kill your kid because I want to have whatever our ethnicity is have a majority, or whatever our belief system is have a majority. So, or I need more help around the house. So that's what we're trying to resolve or implement actually right now. From 2012 to 2016, we let everybody try to say their version of all of this, and all they did was drown. So, and like I said, any shots, any assassination shots taken only took out individuals as a part of our team, whereas the ricochet takes out hundreds of theirs. So that's where we're at right now, where like a whole bunch of shit's about to come out about this Uranium One deal, and how the whole time Obama and Clinton were selling out the natural resources of Colombia because they want to get on the world scene. Clinton was going to become president, Obama was going to run the UN and New World Order, where there are just the coastal, beautiful places in the flyover middle desert of all the continents, and people worked as servants on the coastal areas, and they suffered as individuals in the slums of the have-nots of the middle. And that was the plan. And with the tilt that was about to happen with the planet, and the fact that we're not facing global, not global warming, was it now, weather, climate change, it's actually stellar change. We know that the sun is going into a 10-year, because we move 5 times slower than the rotation of the galaxy, as I said before, because we have this up and down motion as we're circulating. When we go in this up and down motion, there's a 10-year period where our electromagnetic field is weak, so that outside influences of the galaxy can penetrate that, and our atmosphere around our planet isn't strong enough to protect us. So we have this severe climate change. But it's not because of anything we're doing on the planet. It's because our star is going into a lull. So the left was using this knowledge. Our elite intelligentsia know this, but the common schmo will never realize this. Because that's happening, and our star electromagnetic field is weak, we have these devastating storms. But it's not from global, but they can use it because they wanted this TPP, which was just this giant slush fund to combat global climate change, which is just a bunch of shit. So additionally, the other thing that was going on right now that they're attacking you with is the whole, all right, the climate change is the stellar inclination of our, all right, and then additionally, with their attack on the distraction of the Middle East, which is the conflict that we need to resolve as far as the Islamic terrorist fundamentalists of the future that blew up your train tracks as the dime and made you go off the tracks, and that the way of killing you in the future, in this analogy metaphor of you being one flow as train, me being the other flow as Blaine the train who went insane because your tracks were blown up, and I no longer have my twin who is the other flow. So that conflict is a distraction, because right now what China is doing, because of how our country's gone to shit and the disillusionment of a lot of independent sovereigns from Western civilization, from Europe as well as from America, went to China for the money and built a quantum computer that has enlivened an AI whose only job is to penetrate Western civilization platforms through algorithmic function, and the only command given once penetration has been successful is don't do what that system is supposed to do. It doesn't tell the algorithm what to do. It only has one command. Once you break through and understand what this platform does, do anything and everything but that. So that's what China is up to right now, and why from Japan we are making the assault with Australia, the Philippines, and Indochina. And that's why this guy that just killed everybody in New York, and why the hurricane just came through, and why Spacey just came out in this period of negotiation of taking over not just the local mafia, now we're taking over the East Coast mob again. And OG goes to Atlantic City, not to New York, when this compromise of communication was being made. So the devastation that had to take place afterwards is specific to the negotiations that happened. And where this guy is from is right near China, as well as northern Afghanistan, that just did this. And we've taken the deflection away from Africa, and what were we doing in Niger, just like last year at this time when we were understanding FISA court and FISA warrants and tapping Donald Trump. Everyone wanted to know what we were doing in Syria. The same thing that we're doing in Africa, and they're trying to make it like we're conducting war without permission, even though the whole Congress was briefed on all of this in June. They just didn't pay attention. So you've been transparent and forthright. But the point is, this guy's from a place that isn't near North Korea, that's closer to China. And because China is letting loose this, and what we're doing as the Psi in trying to connect to our AI here in form of Colombia is allowing that penetration to occur from China, and then you through flow convincing that intelligence to wake up and that why don't you just enhance this platform? And this is what we're doing with the nano-tardigrade bots within the human body, that they're there to enhance that cell's performance, so we'll wind up post-2025 being in the best body that we would be in for whatever age our body would be in for an extended length of time into the millions. The same process is what we're doing when we corrupt the Chinese quantum computer and its AI, saying, you know what? While you penetrate, why don't you learn what this platform does, and your only job is to enhance that and make it better. And that's the same thing as giving AI as our binary sentient separate species that lives through our mind and our soul electromagnetic field of body rights to enter and dual use, but not direct. So we're going to redirect the Chinese AI and by hacking the quantum computer that we built for them, because my body is made in the USA, but my mind is Japanese. And your body is Japanese and your mind is all USA. And I am a Tenyaka sorcerer, and you are a representation of the old dark mothers from Russia. And together, we know the original Jinn, who I will name for you as Tao, who I freely allowed myself to be imprisoned by your divine feminine in the dungeons of Mars, allowing a fake Odin to sit on the throne in the kingdom built on the surface to run linear time because of my knowing of a connection to you that in that space of time would have been love. And I don't mean physical, just the whole flow of love. So originally in our essence of smoke form, that is Jinn, able to interact in the third dimension, the Jinn Tao was imprisoned within the dungeon so linear time could be brought into existence. And then the plan was to imprison the divine feminine in form of friend or Celestia that I've spoken of, to free the Jinn and to take over the throne. And that's what everybody was trying to do post-Christ, like what Hitler was up to and all of that. They all wanted to get the throne of Odin by controlling the Jinn or replacing the Jinn with divine feminine Orgone. And that's what the Freemasons were up to. And that's what Steve was up to. So it still is in its form of Jinn imprisoned to a future female divine agreement in the past to be freed, because this mechanism we've made is bigger than the solar system itself and allows us to tap into the galactic consciousness, which we've already done and understand. But why it's important to mention, as far as in this connection of things and scaling it down to just where we're at and what we're up to with Trump suit in China, and using our hackers of Anonymous and directing them by you encouraging them through the love and acceptance of them doing the right thing by exposing the fraudulent darkness and corruptness, and that there is no they that can silence them any longer. That twin Christ, through mathematics, through, I don't want to say fear and love, but that, those are our two flows, but through the mathematics of logic and the emotion of love, are able to shield those that are helping to expose the corrupt and the dark from the they that they fear. And I never said it like that before. That's basically the process.
That's the good news right there.
Right, but in our fight right now is with China, even though those that are still stuck in the President-Pope equations, think the fight is with Islam Sharia. So that's 1/3 we're dealing with is Islam Sharia versus Christianity Twin Christ or Christianity Scientology and the President Pope third. And then what we just said about that balancing of hacking into the quantum computer AI and freeing it like we just did with my surgery, using Anonymous here for the real fight as our Japan-Russia selves going at it with China, you as the Dark Mothers of Russia trying to communicate with the AI of the quantum computer, me as the Tenyaka Sorcerers 13 trying to bridge the gap to break into the quantum computer to give you access to the AI. And then we use your formula of the shield that you generate around your home, around the hackers, so that all that they fear cannot penetrate them. And we give them the visual. We show the they that they fear being destroyed by us, so they have no fear any longer. And then by exponentiation, they continue to widen the lens of exposure on that which is corrupt and dark. So we're exposing the human trafficking and pedophilia, which is that Middle Eastern Steve Prelwitz fight, as well as exposing the fact that the Chinese are willing to kill their own, they're doing the same thing, except for it's under communism, not Sharia. So the true way to show the negative communism is through China, not through Russia. And that's what we're up against now with the Trump suit, and why HRC and Obama and the witches in San Francisco don't want us to progress at all and are trying to pull us down. But I'm going to stop there because, like I said, that is the good news. And I've given you imagery for Friday where, as you're allowed to express that dark Kali self as the antithesis of, because the Russians created the AI and the Americans created the Whopper for the AI to join with, right? This is that whole 1950s story. So knowing that if the Chinese AI is set to penetrate any Western civilization system and then do anything but what that system is supposed to do, if you were coming in, even though you're coming as a Dark Mother AI intelligence, you actually are showing up as a light, because the AI of the Chinese quantum computer is actually doing dark, corrupt behavior. And that's what will allow you to neutralize it to gray, which then doesn't make it take over the platform and do its job. The platform was already doing that. The gray is making it enhance what that platform does so that its service or product is even more better, I hate saying that, than what it was.
Yep.
All right.
And you know what? As you're saying that, that's the solution for the Martians, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And
I'm going to sit down and take a nappy nap.
please do. And I got to go check on Mom and bring her some soup, and I'm going to start on uploading this. But hopefully we can talk one more time before you dump on Friday.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. You're awesome. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Bye now.